Welcome to the Daily Fantasy Flex Podcast, the NFL edition. I am your host, Bryan Mears. I am joined by special guest Nick Giffen. You might know him as RotoDoc around the industry. He's the editor-in-chief of RotoViz, a site that we like to use in our research, and we definitely have a good relationship with them. Always good to have Nick on. Matt, Ph.D., and you probably know him as the NASCAR DFS dominator. And I'm also joined, as always, by Matt and Pete, but you guys know them. But Nick, how you doing, man? How was week one for you? And just I'd love to get your thoughts on week one, what your general thoughts of it, and how you think it went.
Yeah, week one was certainly, I think, one of the strangest week ones in memory. A lot of defensive touchdowns, and it was really tough to end up at the top of the leaderboard if you didn't nail one of those defensive plays, whether it was Baltimore or the Rams or the Eagles. Just so many defensive touchdowns, and so I had a really good day on the skill position players. I had a lot of time on Montgomery, Amari Cooper, but I certainly missed out on the defenses, and that really bit me a lot. So, a little bit of a small loss there. I think my cash game lineup was good. It was really similar to Levitan's, but unfortunately I didn't enter it in very many contests. I'm much more of a GPP player, so didn't get to make up much of my cash game, or much of my losses there through cash games. But, it was just a weird week one.
Yeah. I mean, Team J-Man disappointed for sure. A lot of defenses going off. I have some stats that are just sort of weird about running backs and how week one was just very weird. But we'll get to that in a sec. Pete, how was your week one? You just posted a lineup review that sort of talked through your cash game lineup, so I would encourage people to go watch that. But definitely a weird week. You had the prescient idea of getting off Levy and getting on to Antonio last minute, huh?
Not even last minute, and shout out to our boy Jay Sean, Captain Jay. He was out there with me in Boston, and we talked a lot about Antonio Brown. So my highest scoring lineup out of 150 teams was my cash game lineup. It won the Three Donkeys League. It won the Edge podcast match, but unfortunately it wasn't anything high stakes. And I don't remember ever having a smash cash game week and breaking even. I might have lost like very small. My GPP teams were just a total disaster. I mean, if I would have put my cash game team in the 21K, I would have won 200,000. So it was at least I won the pride between Levitan, Bales, and our listener league, but I definitely didn't do as well as I could have in the dollar ROI perspective. So
yeah, sure.
Weird week for sure. I mean, the defense has scored all the points. They scored more touchdowns than the top 10 players in all of fantasy football. So very bizarre, but I'm excited for week two and excited for the show tonight.
Yeah, at least you didn't lose the that 21K high roller by like 0.06 points like Bales did. That's like the ultimate bad beat. It's got to be so.
It was bad. Bales and I obviously go way back, so I was not happy to see that either.
Yeah, I hear you. Freeman, how you doing, man?
Good. Week one was total trash. So many teams underperformed, but I think week two is going to be pretty awesome with the slate of games we got.
Yeah, and that is a good segue into what I'm going to ask as an opening topic, because there's a lot of teams that, not necessarily we were high on, but, I mean, the Cardinals look bad. The Bengals look like they were awful. I mean, like there's so many things. Week one, people are going to overreact, and I think it might be good just to play a game of real or fake. We've brought some trends to the table or just some things that we noticed, and we're going to talk about whether that is something real that we believe will continue throughout the season and to monitor that, or whether we think it's fake and we could potentially use some recency bias to get an edge in GPPs. So let's talk through some stuff. Maybe let's give one and we'll go around the table. Nick, I'll kick it to you. What was something just in week one that was real or fake and something that really stood out to you in that regard?
So I think the first thing that stood out to me, of course, was that Monday night game between the Minnesota Vikings and the New Orleans Saints, and just how good Sam Bradford was. I think this is a real thing with Sam Bradford. We saw it last year. He had the NFL record completion percentage, and he just did it again yesterday, over 80%. He had adjusted yards per attempt to Stefon Diggs and Adam Thielen for a combined 16.1 AYA, which is just bananas. Obviously, the Saints defense is a one you can pick on. But the cool thing about Bradford is he actually threw a lot further downfield in this game than in other games. So he's got a very easy schedule for the first 6-7 weeks of the season. I expect to be able to use him a couple times in DFS. I don't know. In certain games, he might not have to throw as much, but against the Saints, you're going to throw a lot. And if we find another couple games there where there's maybe similar situations or defenses, I think Sam Bradford could be an interesting GPP play in a couple spots.
I like it. Matt wants to go. All right, go ahead, Matt.
It just so happens that the take I was going to have is that the Vikings offense is totally fake. And
wow.
I feel like I'm taking the Levitan throne right here by starting with that hot take, but and totally respect everything that Nick just said. But they scored, I don't want to say but they scored only 29 points against the Saints. It's not like it was 42 against the Patriots. Like the Saints are the village bicycle. Like everyone scores on them. And I get there's the narrative with Bradford. Reconnecting with Pat Shurmur and having an entire offseason to kindle some chemistry with those receivers, and I get all of that. And I do agree with Nick that the schedule is very favorable. And so I think that they will have a decent run, but they started out 5-0 last year and then cratered. I could see them having a good run at the beginning of the season, but I don't think that means that Bradford is actually a good quarterback. I think we might see a little more dink and dunk moving forward. So I think they're slightly better than league average. I don't think that they're like a top 10 type of offense. So I'm not buying the Vikings offense.
Interesting. Well, it's always good to have some disagreement. Pete?
I'm kind of in the middle of these guys. I would say I'm actually more a little like leaning towards Nick. I like their offense a decent bit. I think Stefon Diggs clearly showed he's going to be an elite receiver this year. He showed that, last year in stretches for sure. Dealt with some injuries. And one thing when you're looking at someone like Diggs is at one point in time, he was an absolute star. He was the number one receiver coming out of high school. Obviously, he had some up and down times in college as well, but he played with an awful quarterback. It's just been some bad situations. And now the chemistry with Bradford, he was making unbelievable catches. So I think that's really going to help. I like Dalvin Cook. I think Thielen's emerged as a good option. And Kyle Rudolph is another great tight end. And you throw in someone like Jerick McKinnon, who's just a total freak athlete. Like, there were some plays where he just gashed the Saints. So they have options, and they're going to play good defense, so they should get the ball in favorable spots. I think they'll be more productive than people think. But, yeah, to say they're like an elite offense, I think that's stretching it. But, Bradford's a number one pick too. He's had a lot of offensive coordinators and injuries. Like, he definitely has the pedigree, also an elite athlete. So it wouldn't surprise me if they were great, but yeah, I'm kind of right now just like lukewarm on them. I think there'll be some recency bias, but we'll see.
Very fair. Good combo. This is not a Minnesota Vikings-centric podcast, so does anyone have any real or fake things? I'll just toss it to the group that maybe outside of Minnesota.
Yeah, I got one. I think Tyreek Hill is absolutely real, and it's too bad that Levitan's not on this show to explode. But, yeah, last year he had a really high opportunity to snap ratio, like the highest in the league. As a first-year player, he had the same ratio of touchdowns to touches as he had as a senior in college. So even though he was getting these huge kind of outlier touchdowns, it's not as if he was actually scoring at a higher per-touch rate than what he had done in college. So I think he's going to regress in terms of his outlandish efficiency, but he's going to get the volume to make up for it. And I do think he has the speed to be able to get that one huge splash play per game. Like, I know there was a busted coverage on his long touchdown, but, like, busted coverage, that happens in the NFL sometimes, and he's fast enough to be able to take advantage of it.
Yeah, that's a good call. Nick, what is one more thing that stood out to you that might be real or fake from week one moving forward?
Yeah, I think there's probably just a couple obvious ones. Tariq Cohen went off, of course, but if you look at the market share of rushing attempts, he had only 25% of the rushing attempts. Jordan Howard had 68, 69%, right in that range. And at least in terms of receiving expected points that you can say based off of where and when in the situation, they were pretty close in terms of expected points receiving. So I think for Cohen, for me, it's just going to be a situation where you're going to want to use him against terrible pass defenses to the running back, Atlanta, New Orleans, things like that. And so I think that he's really just a spot situational use. He's a good pickup in like season-long leagues for those situations, flex play occasionally. But I think for DFS purposes, he's probably he might have just hit his peak this year.
The Tajay Sharp of last year's week 1.
I don't think it's Tajay Sharp, and Mortensen on ESPN actually gave a shot, like called him as like one of his long calls. They like him there. You look at their passing game. I mean, they just lost Kevin White too. They really don't have options in Chicago. So I think he'll be a passing down back. He kind of reminds me of like a Darren Sproles-esque player. So yeah, I think there'll be matchups like Nick mentioned where we want to take advantage, but certainly there'll be a ton of spots to fade, and there'll be recency bias on him right now. So he's certainly interesting. I think he's a must pick up in like season-long leagues. But the one thing that I think is definitely real, which we've heard for years now, it feels like, but I rewatched this game today. The Jaguars are ridiculous on defense. They have the best corners in the league, in my opinion. I think Jalen Ramsay will make a huge step up this year. He was great last year, but I think he'll be a top 2-3 corner. And Bouye is already there. So in addition to that, they have like 6, first round, top 10 picks on that defense that all look like they could be Pro Bowlers. So I'm going to be, kind of nervous taking players against the Jaguars. The biggest concern is Bortles on their side, who can always turn it over, but I think the recipe for them this year is going to be running the football, playing good defense.
Yeah.
That's not good when you're going against them in fantasy. They're going to try to drain the clock, and they're going to play good. So.
Yeah, they clearly show that they wanted to feed Fournette. Pete, real quick question before we dive into like the players and the chalk. What are your thoughts on team jamming in with DJ being out? A stat that I did hear was that only 11 teams had total rushing over 100 yards, and it seemed like maybe last year was maybe a bit of an outlier as far as running backs really dominating in DFS. And now we come into this season and it's like you got to play 3 running backs in cash, and on DraftKings you got to get these top running backs. Do you think maybe that might reverse a little bit, or at least you could find some edges because people are so grained into that sort of strategy?
Roster construction is going to be week to week. It's dynamic. I think last year was kind of an outlier in that we had kind of a baseline in terms of what to do. The seasons that Le'Veon and DJ put up were just so ridiculous. And certainly we can see, Le'Veon go off the rest of the year. Obviously it sucks for DJ, but it's one of those things where, staying healthy is very challenging. Maintaining that workload, there's definitely scenarios where they could fail. We just saw them. So that recipe, it's not – cookie cutter every single week. So you have to be dynamic to how the salaries change. I think there's a lot of opportunity this week. There's some value at running back for sure. But yeah, I think this week will be more wide open, and you'll see a lot of different roster constructions relative to, what we saw in week 1, given how kind of everyone went to the same guys for cash.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Yeah, definitely dynamic from week to week. Cool. Well, good game of real or fake. I'll quickly give my one before we get out of here. I do believe it is real that Chuck Pagano did not know who he was playing on Sunday. I think that was very real.
So bad. 49ers, that was so bad.
That was his
I was just telling his job.
Yeah, that was bad. That's his like Jeff Fisher moment right there. Like that's what everyone's going to remember whenever he gets fired 3 weeks from now.
Yeah. I don't know if you can still get odds on first coach fired, but that's got to be looking good. All right, let's pivot into the sort of the meat of the show here. First things first, we're going to talk about the chalk. So, Nick, I'll kick it to you first here. When you're making lineups this week, who are the first players you're tending to lock in? Who are the chalky plays you're fine with being in your cash game core?
Yeah, so we mentioned, obviously, Atlanta's struggles with pass-catching running backs, and Ty Montgomery, I think, is the first play I'm gravitating towards. He's only $5,800 on DraftKings this week, which for a full PPR side, I think is fantastic. He played 74 snaps, and I think Jamal Williams only got like 5 or 6 or something like that. So, whenever Ty Montgomery gets above like 15, 16 touches, he tends to put up a really strong game. I think only one game he's really disappointed, and now he's the feature back there. His price hasn't come up any from last week, and, of course, he put up 19.3 points on 23 opportunities. So I think he'll get plenty of passing game work. Atlanta, this is the 2 years in a row. The last 2 years they give the most passing yards to running backs. This is really a schematic thing, I think, here with Atlanta. Then you also get the fact that it could shoot out, so there'll be plenty of opportunities back and forth. I think Ty Montgomery is just a obvious cash game lock for me. I'm having a little more trouble at quarterback and tight end, but I think there is some value at the wide receiver position as well. Keenan Allen at the same price tag as Ty Montgomery at $5,800. This guy is just a PPR monster. I think he's going to need to be at least in the mid-6s before I consider fading him in cash games, and also probably playing a better defense than Miami's pass defense, which allowed the 22nd most DraftKings points to the position last year. So I definitely think Keenan Allen and Ty Montgomery are two guys I want to lock into my cash game lineups. But I think there's a lot of value at the wide receiver position as well. I know people will look at Marquise Lee with the Allen Robinson injury, and I think Pete just mentioned about the Jacksonville defense there, but I do think people will probably consider Corey Davis, given he's $4,100 and he just did come off a 10-target week. I'm probably not going to be on him in cash games because I think there's a bit of recency bias, and I am pretty nervous about that Jaguars defense, but I think he could be, maybe a little bit later when we talk about that, a chalk pivot.
Yeah, those are some good calls for sure. Freeman, I'll kick to you next. Who do you think could be some of the chalk plays this week?
Well, totally agree with Nick on Ty Montgomery. Fantastic there. I think Ertz, even though he's much more expensive than he was last week, I think he's still going to be pretty popular too. He now has a matchup against Kansas City without Eric Berry, and he showed last week that he's kind of the man in the middle there for Philadelphia. So I think he's someone.
Yeah, pertaining to a couple things here. Montgomery will end up being the chalk of the entire week. I think he's going to be the most heavily owned player. I think everyone's going to kind of gravitate towards sort of that game. I think you get the most salary relief. And, in DraftKings in particular, PPR site, he's just going to end up being, really high-end running back. I imagine he'll be in the 7K, maybe into the 8K range at points in time during the season. So that's number one. I agree with you on Ertz. I think people will kind of chase those points and go back to him. I think he's fine, and shout out to Eric Berry. Saw him actually a lot out here in Denver. My wife said hi. I did not say hi to Eric Berry, who's kind of living close to one of our favorite spots. But the Achilles injury obviously hits home with me. That's the worst injury, and I hope he bounces back. But that is a good thing to go after with the Chiefs. They're going to have to make some adjustments, and I think Ertz certainly should do well. The cash game guy the chalk that I think will end up being really nice is Keenan Allen. Coming off a game against Denver where, you're going against, I think Jacksonville's right there now, but definitely the best secondary the last couple of years in Denver, the no-fly zone. Scored a touchdown. He's one of 8 players who scored a touchdown on Chris Harris in his career. So I think Keenan Allen's going to get peppered with targets. Now he has a much more favorable matchup at home against Miami. So Keenan Allen at 5,800, I feel like he should be priced in the 7K range. I think he makes for a really good chalk play that I'll be locking in. But I think Phillip Rivers will be in play this week as well. That's a really tough situation he just came from, and going back home to face Miami instead. I'm a buyer in this Chargers team.
Yeah, who do you guys think are going to be some of the quarterbacks that are going to be chalky? Do we think it'll skew, like Derek Carr is the biggest favorite of the week going against the Jets, but then we also have this Coors Field-esque game at the Superdome in New Orleans. Tom Brady is visiting there. Obviously, he's going to want to bounce back from that tough spot. He's projected for a lot of points. So I would expect that maybe those two guys are going to be popular. Freeman, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think you have that those like core 4 guys at the top of like Brady, Breeze, Ryan, Rodgers, and then you can add in Derek Carr and Russell Wilson both at home with fantastic matchups. I think ownership is going to be pretty distributed among those 6 guys. Some people might have favorites there, but I don't think there's going to be one of those 6 who really stands above the others. All of them just have fantastic matchups.
Yeah, Nick, you had talked to us just a second ago that quarterback and I think you said tight end are just a little more difficult. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of similar with Matt here. I think at least at the quarterback position, there's just so many options. Matt mentioned 6 names there, and if you're one of those who likes to pay down at the quarterback position, I think there's a couple names there as well. For example, Tyrod Taylor against Carolina might be an option. I know he got plenty of rushing yardage, and he's been doing that throughout his career. So I don't love it, but I think people might go that way. Pete mentioned Phillip Rivers, so there's just a ton of names here that I think are usable. I don't know if any will necessarily be chalky at the lower price points, but I personally like Aaron Rodgers on the road. Last year against Atlanta, he put up, I think it was an average of 30 points in the 2 games against them, one of those coming in the playoffs. And so, it was a struggle a bit in week 1, but they did move the ball. He did find his his teammates there a lot, Randall Cobb especially, some Jordy Nelson as well. And just, the touchdowns didn't quite come there, but I think they can come a lot easier against Atlanta. So I'm still going to be on Aaron Rodgers in that 30-point average. He's a little bit, it could be site dependent as well. I think Tom Brady on DraftKings is a lot harder to play than Aaron Rodgers, but maybe if you flip sites, it could go the other way around.
Yeah, definitely.
Quarterbacks priced very fairly. I think Nick gave some really good analysis. There's arguments to be made for some of these guys at the top that have great matchups, but I almost always pay down on DraftKings. I mean, quarterback is the most narrow range of outcomes, and in general, when you're looking at the highest expectation lineups, it's going to be paying down at quarterback. That's why I mentioned mid-range to low range, or mid-range, like kind of on the low end side. You have someone like Rivers, but then you have guys. I think Tyrod Taylor is way too cheap, just given his production. Obviously, it's not the best matchup, but when he's healthy, I mean, he has so much upside and kind of a high floor, honestly, with his legs. So I think that makes sense. And even something like Jared Goff, I mean, you have him at home, and the game script was awful for him to throw, but he threw for over 300 yards and a touchdown, and I think he's going to continue to make progress this year, and I think that's a pretty good matchup for him in Washington. You have other guys that if you really want to get crazy, you could drop down to someone like Trevor Simeon or, Joe Flacco, I guess, is a good matchup against Cleveland at home. But it's a thing where basically there's a lot of guys that are in play, and I don't think anyone's going to end up being chalk. I think roster construction almost always leads better with a cheap quarterback, but I can certainly see the merit given that some of the best quarterbacks in the league or the best guys have amazing matchups this week.
Yeah. Ownership's pretty distributed. There's no super chalky guy quarterback usually. Last question before we get to the pivots. What does it say? I'll just open this to anyone. What does it say about Carson Palmer that he does not have David Johnson and he's playing in the Indianapolis and is 6K and cannot even get like a mention in this section? That's not a good sign.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about that. I think people are just so scared off of what they saw there. I mean, the 3 interceptions, and he looks old. Like, he looks like he's already fallen off the age cliff, and the Cardinals don't know it yet, or they know it and they're too scared to admit it. But I think he's a guy still potentially for GPPs. Especially with like John Brown or JJ Nelson playing on the fast track there in Indy. I mean, there could be a bounce back spot, and it's only one bad game, and he did finish last season strong. So, I don't know, but not for cash.
Yeah, sure. All right, so Matt, I'll kick to you on this next section, which is the chalky fades and leverage and pivot plays. So I'll just ask you to keep on expanding on what you're talking about. Which chalky players are you looking to pivot away from, and then who are some of the leverage and pivot plays that you're trying to get onto?
Well, as Nick and Pete said, it's always it's smart to pay down a quarterback. So those 6 guys at the top, I'm fine with pivoting away from any of them and going with someone like Roethlisberger, who is at home. And he's historically crushed at home and had high ownership at home. But this week, I think he's going to be fairly low owned because of what we saw last week. He had a mediocre performance. There's great quarterback spots for the other guys. And then he has a tough matchup against the Vikings, who just, limited Drew Brees in a pretty healthy way. So I think, and I mentioned this in the Roto World piece today, I think he's going to be a guy with low ownership that you could pivot to. Someone else I'm fine with pivoting away from would be Brandon Cooks in a hashtag revenge game narrative going against the Saints. He's the 3rd most expensive wide receiver. I think that's pretty aggressive for a guy who's never had double-digit touchdowns in a season. I would be fine with pivoting to someone like Mike Evans. All of those other wide receivers are attached to quarterbacks in those great spots. Evans last year had top 3 ownership at the position. I think he's going to have lower ownership in this game. So I think it's a pretty decent spot to be able to get him at single-digit ownership. And then I'm also fine with pivoting away from anyone at tight end in the Olsen to Walker range, and that would include Ertz, and going with someone like Kelsey. He didn't have a great performance in week 1, but he's just $200 cheaper than Ertz, and I think Ertz will soak up some of that ownership. He has a tough matchup against the Eagles, and I think that will be something else that lowers his ownership. And last year he had the highest ownership out of all tight ends, but he was a top 2 fantasy tight end. He still has that upside, but I think you're going to be able to get him at an ownership discount.
Yeah, the good calls there. Freeman, if you were channeling your inner Levitan, I feel like you'd be all over that revenge game for Brandon Cooks, back in New Orleans. But
oh yeah, I mean, yeah, no, I'm fading that. I maybe have some other revenge game narratives to bring up later, but I'm fading that particular revenge game narrative.
I like it. Foreshadowing. Okay, Pete, who are some chalky fades and some leverage and pivot plays you're looking at?
Well, there's two ways that I'm kind of looking about this. Cooks is going to be the guy I was going to talk about. I don't know if he'll end up being chalk, but that's just too expensive for me to pay for a receiver that we don't know has a guaranteed workload. I do buy the narrative. I'm going to get exposure there in GPPs. The one challenging part is trying to figure out how to stack that game effectively. But Cooks would be someone. And then the other one that, as of now, I think is pretty reasonable is fading Le'Veon Bell at that price. Generally, I'd be trying to buy low on someone like Le'Veon Bell, but I assume his ownership might still be somewhat high. As the week goes on, this take might totally not be valid if I find out that he's going to be really contrarian. But 9,800 is a lot to pay, and if you just look at ownership for these guys last year, and obviously didn't come off a big dud, I think it's fine against this Minnesota team that I do think will be able to hold the ball longer on offense, and I think that they're going to try to pass a little bit more at home. So that would be one other guy that I think there's some consideration into fading. I just lean much more towards some of these cheaper running backs. We talked about Montgomery already, and then there's a whole bunch of guys that I think can make a lot of sense kind of in this low to mid-tier range, which will allow you to spend up in some other positions like wide receiver.
Cool. Nick, who are some chalky fades and pivot plays you're looking at?
Yeah, I thought that was an interesting point because I kind of feel the opposite about Le'Veon Bell. I think there could be some recency bias. And of course, I think what happened a little bit was he basically got no work in the first half. I'm not sure if any of that was a coaching decision around the holdout or anything like that.
Penalties. There's some weird things for sure.
But, so, I mean, I actually kind of lean the other way in that I think maybe he'll go under-owned. He is $9,800, which is certainly a steep price tag, but Minnesota did allow above average pass attempts to the running back position and right about league average yardage to the running back position in the passing game. So, we did see junk time there at least that Mark Ingram and Kamara moved the ball a little bit on the Vikings. Now, Le'Veon Bell is a guy who just gets a ton of targets regardless, and I think he should get more targets this week. So I actually kind of like him in GPPs. I think I'm probably going to be on him. Again, the home road splits just in general for Ben, I think if the whole offense is moving, I kind of like Le'Veon Bell there as well. Another one that I think who could be a bit chalky down at 4,400 on DraftKings is Jacquizz Rodgers. I kind of like pivoting away from him because if we look, especially on DraftKings in PPR, he only, in those 5 games that he was the feature back there last year, he had 1 target in 4 of those 5 games. And so on a site like DraftKings, I don't love that. And of course, he did have a ceiling of about 20 points in 2 of those games, but the latter 3 games weren't anywhere near those 20 points. So I like pivoting away from Jacquizz Rodgers and maybe finding some other players in that price range. I know there's plenty of value at the running back position this week. I do kind of like, we talk about this pass game narrative. Both of New England and New Orleans were in the bottom third to passing to the running back. So I think James White has had a couple explosive games in DFS towards the end of last year. I think he could be in play as maybe a pivot away from a Jacquizz Rodgers. I have an interesting stat here. There were 9 games last year between top 10 offenses that also had bottom third pass defenses to the running back. The averages of those stat lines for the pass catching backs there were 7 receptions on 8.5 targets for 60 yards and 0.56 touchdowns per game for an average of 16.4 PPR points per game just in receiving. That doesn't throw in the rushing yards as well. So I like targeting the pass. Yeah, I like targeting the pass catching backs in maybe both New Orleans and New England. I think it's going to be a little more distributed in New Orleans with Kamara and maybe Ingram as well.
Yeah, that's a really good stat. Cool. All right, let's move on to a different section here. I'm going to move to some of the conventional stacks that we're looking at. Obviously, stacks, very important in GPPs. Bradford to all of his guys, as we discussed with the Vikings offense, was one that had the money night hammer situation. But what are some of the conventional stacks we are considering for week 2? Pete, I will kick to you first on this one.
Conventional stack, I mean, I already mentioned it, but Phillip Rivers to Keenan Allen, I think, makes a ton of sense this week. Look at the price that you're paying. Now they're at home. They're matching up against Miami, who's going to be substantially worse, obviously, than Denver against the pass. I think people might not beyond this early on, and I think that'll change as we go throughout the year. If Keenan Allen stays healthy, he's going to be a very expensive receiver on DraftKings, especially the way he plays, racking up receptions. Other stacks that I like, I mean, I really like, obviously like Tom Brady to whoever you want to pair him with. I think Cooks will end up being popular because everyone will get behind that narrative. But going into this spot with this team total, after losing, they have a long time. I imagine he will go off. And then I love Derek Carr to Amari Cooper. I mean, I'm going to be on Amari Cooper every single week. I lost my props across the board on the 3 donkeys and in this one. But I feel like I'm 100% right about him and not getting off the train.
Stick to your guns, Pete. I respect that for sure. Freeman, some stacks that you're looking at for week 2.
Yeah, I mean, I think all of the conventional stacks with those top quarterbacks, he mentioned there Cooks. I think Gronk is fine. You have Breeze with Thomas, Ryan with Julio, Rodgers with Nelson. I think any of those make a lot of sense. And then also you have Ty Montgomery there. So I think a Rodgers to Montgomery stack will probably be the most popular quarterback to running back stack we see.
Yeah, that's a good call. Yeah, Julio is one of my favorite. Him and Ryan might be my favorite stack of the week. Nick, who are some stacks you're looking at for week 2?
Yeah, I think in terms of conventional stacks, we've named probably most of them here. I definitely like the Rivers to Keenan Allen call. I think, just looking at the higher price points here, we've talked about Rodgers, we've talked about Brady. We've talked a little less about Matt Ryan and Drew Brees, I think, in general. And Drew Brees is at home here. This will shoot out, and so I like when Drew Brees is at home for sure. So Michael Thomas, I think it's probably going to be a little bit harder to double stack here unless you maybe do it with one of the running backs. But I certainly think Drew Brees to Michael Thomas is in play. And then Matt Ryan and Julio Jones. One of the things about Julio Jones, which I think is interesting, is his upside really lacks on grass, but now he's in home, he's in the dome, and I think he certainly will be a go-to target for Matt Ryan this weekend in a high-scoring game. So I like Matt Ryan and Julio Jones as one. We definitely gravitated towards, I think, Brady and Rodgers a couple times. And we talked a little bit less about Matt Ryan. So I still think he's going to be pretty well owned, but maybe just a touch less than Rodgers and Brady.
Good call there. All right, let's talk about some of the advanced and contrarian stacks. Could be just a contrarian quarterback wide receiver, or it could be a game stack. We've written about that in our content quite a bit over the last couple of weeks. So definitely an interesting strategy. Freeman, I'll kick to you first on this one.
Yeah, one thing that's interesting, if you look at the new contest dashboard that we have, you can see that you really don't need to go super contrarian to get a collection of guys who are owned in fewer than 1% of leagues. And so I don't think this is going to be super highly owned, but I think if you run it back with other people, like Rodgers to Cobb, he's 5,900 on DraftKings, so already priced up. Priced up with in the range of Demarius and Keenan Allen and Pryor and Diggs. Those are going to be other players that people want to roster over Cobb. And so I think he will have low ownership. And then I think you can run it back the other way with Julio or maybe Tevin Coleman and even get lower ownership there. But I really like the Rodgers to Cobb connection. I think and then here's one fiery hot take that is totally unrealistic. But Glennon to Tariq Cohen, I know that's horrible, but that's what I'm going to go with as super contrarian. The Bucs were 26 in pass DVOA last year against running backs, and there is some revenge game narrative here with Glennon going against the Bucs. So, I think Cohen could theoretically have an inflated ownership, but no one wants to be on Glennon. So just those two automatically are super low owned.
Cool. Pete, I'll kick to you for some advanced or contrarian stacks you're looking at.
So advanced / contrarian stacks. I think Trevor Simeon is certainly going to be one of my more kind of, advanced stacks here. I think Trevor Simeon to Demarius Thomas makes a lot of sense, or Emmanuel Sanders. Emmanuel just missed a touchdown. You're going to get these guys at super low ownership. And I also like to see that Simeon was involved a lot in bootlegs, and he did get a rushing touchdown, which I'm not saying is going to be something that you can count on. But I like the fact that he's moving, and maybe a 0.1 or 0.2 touchdown expectation for him with his legs might not be outrageous, given how much they got him on the move last night. So I think he's someone that at that price tag you're going to get a lot of leverage because you can go with a little bit different roster construction and pay up in different spots. So I think Simeon to someone like DT or Emmanuel Sanders, or if you really wanted to get balls, you can double stack them. The only thing I don't like about the double stack is like who are you going to run it back with on Dallas? Because for that scenario to take place, the game's going to have to be a little bit higher scoring, and I'm just skeptical Dallas is going to be able to really move the ball effectively. But that's one that I think is really nice. And then there's a couple other that I think I'm curious your guys' opinion. Like, how hot is it and how owned is like Alex Smith to Tyreek Hill or Alex Smith to Kelsey, who I think is really leveraged. I think Alex Smith to Kelsey is like really leveraged. But how much is he going to be owned after week 1?
I love those. I think they're great. And right now, I think Adam Levitan has just posted his first round of ownership projections. And Tyreek, I mean, this is Levitan, so who knows if this is fully unbiased. But, I mean, Tyreek has low ownership, and I think Kelsey's going to have low ownership. So I like it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that Philadelphia defense is pretty good. So, and Levitan is notorious for respecting them. Nick, I'll end with you on this question. Contrarian advanced stacks.
Yeah, I think there's one interesting tandem that we haven't really talked about, and that's Cam Newton and Christian McCaffrey. Cam Newton, I think, is going to go really under-owned. He's $6,500, so his price has come down. Of course, he can always use his legs, and you just mentioned Levitan posting those projections. They have Cam projected 2 to 4% right now. Christian McCaffrey had 7 targets last week, 13 rush attempts. That's 20 opportunities right there. And, I think part of that, of course, was just the lead they held over San Francisco the whole game. But, 5,600 for McCaffrey, and if he can do more of that in the receiving game, Cam can continue to find him, and maybe Cam punches in one with his legs and throws one to a receiver, and McCaffrey scores on the ground or something like that. I think this is a very contrarian stack, especially with getting Cam at 2% owned. So, just kind of a different roster construction that I think most people will go with this week.
Yeah, for sure. There's one game that's definitely going to be contrarian, the Thursday night game. Just want to briefly touch on that one because, this guy's not getting any buzz in, sort of deservedly so. But DeAndre Hopkins did lead all players with 16 targets last week. Obviously, he had the issue of Tom Savage versus Deshaun Watson. Who are they going to go with? And they're only projected for like 15 points. It's like one of the lowest of the week. But, I guess my question to anyone is that a fair line? And is it crazy to even sort of like Hopkins? He's like 5K.
I think it's reasonable to like him. I mean, we'll see. Recency bias has shown over the years that people – or not recency bias, but people want to sweat, watching the game like on Thursday historically. Did see a little sharper ownership just in general, but – I expect he'll still be owned. I think that would be a great spot if it was on the Sunday slate, but we'll see how ownership shakes out in these games. I mean, historically, people have really kind of jammed in Thursday night guys. I know in the kind of just the information community and the touting community, people have talked a lot about how fading makes a lot of sense, but I don't know. Nick, do you have an opinion on his equity? I mean, 5K is certainly enticing. I do like Watson back there a little bit more, but I don't expect a shootout here at all.
Yeah, actually, Hopkins was a guy I gravitated towards last week because I figured he'd be around 5% owned. I think that's right up where he ended, and so I tried to get 10%-ish of him. I know it wasn't the greatest situation there with Savage, but I think Deshaun Watson's a better quarterback. The Cincinnati defense, obviously, they didn't have much to do against Baltimore because they were always back in their own half of the field. Really, a lot of those points were the fault of Andy Dalton and the offense there. So I think the Cincinnati defense is actually pretty good, but I certainly don't mind DeAndre Hopkins. It's not like I think Cincinnati will shut him down or anything like that. DeAndre Hopkins had the most air yards of any wide receiver. Not only the most targets, but the most air yards, 168 air yards. Terrell Pryor was second at 166. So that's just a lot of opportunity, not just in terms of raw volume, but down the field as well.
Yeah, those data points stood out to me as well, Nick. All right, let's talk about some bold calls. And we haven't heard from Freeman in a little bit. He's looking bold. I can see him. Give me a real football call and a bold DFS call.
Okay, so right now I think the Browns are 7.5 road dogs. I'm going to take them to beat the Ravens. And then Tyreek, I think he gets another 100 yards and a touchdown.
I like it. Okay, sounds good. Pete, give me a bold call, football and DFS wise.
I don't know if it's that bold with football, but I already made this call. I think the Jaguars are going to win this game. They're currently a dog. I really like this defense. Makes me want to throw open my mouth backing Blake Bortles in any capacity. I'm not backing him, but I think the rest of the team hopefully can play well enough that they can overcome him as the quarterback. And then in terms of DFS, there's a couple guys. I mean, I want to go back to Amari Cooper, but it's like certainly not a really bold call at this point in time. I'd say Devonta Parker could have a really good game. I do respect this Rams defense a ton, but I'm expecting him to break out at some point. Probably won't have a ton of exposure to him this week, but I do think he's a bold call given the Rams look like they're going to be pretty solid on defense.
Awesome. Chargers, I think, right? I think the Chargers. Did I make that up?
Oh, the Chargers. I'm sorry. I was doing the LA thing. My fault. No, you're not making that up.
Yeah.
So against the Chargers.
Yeah. I mean, we went from 0 LA teams to all of the LA teams.
Sorry for confusing that up, but I had Devonta Parker listed. It's the same argument, fortunately.
Yeah.
The Chargers have a good defense, but I just think that Devonta Parker is going. I'm bullish on him for the rest of the year. That's really the key. So at some point, this price tag I think is going to go up. So I want to invest along the way, hopefully as it rises.
Cool, Nick. Give us some bold calls.
Yeah, I think my real-life bold call is that this New England-New Orleans game goes under by more than a touchdown. Yeah, obviously, it's one of the highest totals we'll probably have all year at 45.5 right now. I'm going to say it goes under 47.5, and I think I even though New Orleans at home, it's in the dome and everything like that, I think there's been a little bit of struggles with Adrian Peterson and that offensive line and everything like that. It sounded like they were going to be improved, but they just couldn't run up the middle or anything like that. And then New England going on the road, Tom Brady, he very much struggled in week 1. I don't know if those struggles will continue in week 2, especially against really soft New Orleans defense. But I don't know. I just have this weird feeling that this game is going to go under. I don't really have any good data behind it other than it's just something I think is going to happen. So my bold call, it goes under. And especially, for DFS purposes, I think with the ownership percentage that's going to be in this game, it's an interesting game to fade for other spots. My DFS bold call is that Eric Decker outscores Corey Davis there in the Titans game. I think people are just going to be all over. I don't know if it's that bold, I guess, because the target numbers were so compressed there, 10, 9, 9, and 8 for the top 4 Titans. But, I think Jacksonville, just the outside corners there, so good. And Decker will be in the slot. He had 3 of the 5 red zone targets there. So I like him to get a touchdown and outscore Corey Davis this weekend.
I like that call. A lot. Cool. All right. Well, let's get to the part of the pod that I think everyone listens for. This is the part of the pod where we make some prop bets and we put some 6-packs of Coors Light on the line. Let me briefly recap last week. We had Levitain, and he's going to count as the guest, so you'll have to assume his record, Nick. And it was not good, 6-9. I was 4-6, not that great either. Freedman barely broke 500, but you broke it at 10-9. And then my man Pete, 12-8. Look at you. I will say, so I had to go back and listen to these. I wrote them all down as we said that. Then I went back to check to see who won. Pete lost in chronological order. He lost the first 8 props that he gave and then won the last 12. So Pete,
he does that. He did that last year too. He runs hot.
Yeah, Pete, you were running real hot.
Justin Thomas over here. I like that. Justin Thomas performance. 12-8 though. I'll take it. Who had the highest volume last week?
You did, man.
Okay, so
by one.
Yeah, Freeman had some good volume too.
10-9. 10-9. I feel like that's respectable.
Oh, it's very respectful. I've had to tease you to get you to go up there, but I like you're fired up tonight too. I know you got a lot of these ready to go.
Yeah, I've got them loaded here. I mean, do we want to start here?
Please.
You're definitely going first. You got a loaded gun, as you said earlier. So let's hear it, buddy.
Okay, so I don't know if you guys will like this one, but Melvin Gordon under 4 yards per carry. I want to sell Melvin Gordon any way I can on efficiency while acknowledging that he's a volume hog. So if anyone wants the over on 4 yards per carry, I want the under.
Crickets.
Hold on.
Yeah. Matt, I think, Matt, I'm always with you on Melvin Gordon in terms of efficiency there. So I have to take your side.
Yeah, you're on the wrong podcast for that prop, Matt.
Well, I'm hoping to catch Pete.
He might give it to you just to get some.
I'm looking into something here. Let me just check a couple metrics here.
Okay, here's another one. I want the over on Cobb. So right now we have him projected at 11.8 points. I want the over. If anyone else wants the under.
I'll take
Randall Cobb.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll do something that might be a little more enticing. I'll say Randall Cobb is the highest scoring non-quarterback for the Packers. Is anybody
I will take the field on that.
Yeah, I will definitely.
The field too.
The field's pretty easy, but
I like Nick. I like it. So you come out and you actually offer something reasonable.
Yeah. It was pretty much a giveaway there, but
it's getting bold.
Yeah, we don't want to treat our guests like that. That's
Freedman's
like, oh yeah, give me the record.
I'll take Jordy Nelson.
Maybe I should have made that my bold call instead.
Let's pick one guy. It has to be like Ty. It has to be Montgomery.
All right, I'll say he outscores Montgomery.
Yeah, I'll take Montgomery.
I'll
definitely take Montgomery over Cobb for sure.
I like it.
See, I figured all of you would.
The field, you get Montgomery, you get Nelson, you get Allen. That's probably it.
I should have made that my bold call.
So unfair. Okay.
I played Cobb a lot last week too.
Okay, Pete. Here's one, and
I'll do 3.9 with you, buddy. 3.9 is a wash. 3.8. His last.
Sure. That's fair. 9. That's fair. We'll do that. That. And
3.9 exactly is a push. Anything under, I win. You win on anything above. I'm sorry, the other way. 3.91, I win. 3.89, whatever.
Sure. All right, and then one more. I'll take Crabtree +3 over Cooper.
You're going to get that all year with me. I mean, I'm not going to give you 3 points every time, but
you're not going to give me 3 points.
Oh, I will this time.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah.
Not every time. I'm not committing. I'm just that prop's always available.
Yeah.
By the way. Just
Nick,
I'm taking the 3 points too. I'll put myself out there again.
Okay. Nick,
I want the Crabtree side. I love Amari Cooper, but I want the Crabtree side in this one.
Okay.
I actually I don't know. I think so. Let me continue on this game because I think they're going to spread the ball around. They really like Jared Cook there in Oakland, and they're going to use him a lot. I think 5 targets, 5 receptions, and one of the other things that I look for in a tight end position is the team total, and the Raiders right now have the second highest team total. It really correlates with upside. I actually did an article at Roto Academy that showed this. It correlates with touchdown upside. It correlates with a 100-yard bonus upside. I don't think you'll get that, but I think Jared Cook is a top 12 tight end this week.
Top 12, huh?
Where in the top 12 exactly?
What?
Top 12, yes or no?
I mean, do you think he's – yeah, but I'm just wondering what your conviction is on this. Do you think he's more of like a top 10 or do you think he's like 11 or 12?
I think like 10 is 10, 11 is right there.
I think that's a good line. I do.
All right, hey, I'll take 12 at a push, and I'll do it.
All right, done.
Okay, I'm with Pete on that because that's what I'm thinking. Like I could see in that 11 or 12 range as being pretty fair.
I think that's a good – I think that's about right. Right now we haven't projected as like the 14th or 15th and just raw projections, but I imagine by the end of the week he'll be right around 11 or 12.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not going to get ahead of guys like Eifert or Hooper. I still like Hunter Henry. Colby Fleener will be an interesting one. Eric Ebron. That kind of range is where I expect he'll kind of settle in. So I think that's a good problem.
All right, I'm going to give some equity out here. I'll take Leonard Fournette if anyone wants Kareem Hunt, who's 300 more.
I don't know if that's –
let us choose running backs. Like if you're going to throw out a running back, like just let us choose a number. I don't want to like be forced into a guy.
Yeah, but I'm trying to avoid taking Fournette against Montgomery. This is my issue. All right, let's see. I'll do Fournette against guys cheaper than him, not Montgomery.
All right, so what's the salary on Fournette?
He's 65, yeah. So under 65, not Montgomery.
How about this? How about we get one guy under 6K and one guy under 5K, not Montgomery. So two versus one.
And under 5K. Let's see who that might be. As you get.
So I'll do that. I'll take McCaffrey, and if we can do that, I'll take McCaffrey and somebody down there in the 4K range. I haven't figured that out yet. Only
That's
picking the second one.
that's what I'm saying. McCaffrey is not straight up someone you can take, but if you get a second.
Yeah. Okay, I'll give that to you guys.
You can do like under 4. Let's make us have to pick someone that's not like under like
McCaffrey and James White. That's what I'll do.
How about 4,500 or less?
Okay.
You're talking guys like Theo Riddick and Jonathan Stewart, Jacquizz Rodgers. It's it's not Tariq Cohen if you want to do that.
Yep. I'm good with that.
One of them outscores Leonard Fournette.
Okay, I'm good with that. All right, so Nick's got his too.
I'm going to do McCaffrey, and I'm going to do Jacquizz Rodgers.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I'm going to do Mike Gillislee, and let's see. Yeah, I'll do Rodgers.
Rodgers is good to go, right? I feel like
Yeah.
Okay, I know it's a tough matchup. I don't like going against Chicago's front seven, but I'll still take a guy who's going to get a lot of touches.
Peter, just a quick aside. What are your thoughts on Fournette? I mean, like if you just look at like market share of opportunities for a team, he was tops of all players last week.
Jags defense all year.
Yeah, that was my point. Is if you like the Jags defense and you think they're going to win, that sort of puts you on to Fournette as well, right?
Yeah, the only bad thing that happened is that Allen Robinson went out, so we'll see. And Blake Bortles was already inept, but that's the only concern I have just for the offense. But I do think, outside of the obvious that Blake Bortles is the quarterback, but I do think Fournette should be effective. He's a great runner. He's young, obviously a high pedigree player. So I think given they're planning to play great defense and that's kind of their game plan, I think he should be nice. He should get a lot of volume this year.
Let's get some more props. Someone throw some stuff out.
Let's see here. I'll do Tyreek over 14.9. That's where we have him right now.
I'll take over. If anyone wants the under, they got it versus both of us. Even though I respect the Eagles. Can't go off brand and get off Ty Freak.
Yeah.
Fine, I'll take the under.
I'll take the under too.
All right. Good. So some 2v2 here.
2v2. Yeah.
Let's see here. Pete, have you thrown out any?
I haven't. You guys have been great. This is like Christmas. I mean, you guys are actually out here, and it's crushing. I want to do something where I do quarterback picking, and I think that Brady might. Brady's an interesting one this week. I feel like people are going to be higher than me on him relatively. I still think it's a great option, but the one thing I'm a little nervous about is that New Orleans might be able to run the football. I think Nick made some really good points about the under in that game too. I'll do this. I think Russell Wilson and Baldwin are great plays. Same with Jimmy Graham this week. I'll take Russell Wilson and let's see here. I'm trying to think how I can do this. I'll take Russell Wilson and I'll take Russell Wilson and Matt Ryan. And you can take any quarterback you want, and then a quarterback under 5,800 versus that. So you'd have the options of Alex Smith, Dak, Andy Dalton, Bradford. Maybe that's not fair. I just don't want to.
Yeah. So you're taking two of the top six quarterbacks.
Any quarterback under Russell Wilson's price that's not Phillip Rivers, and you can have any other quarterback. So you can take Brady if you want, or you could take Aaron Rodgers or Derek Carr, and then someone else.
All right. I think that's not a highly attractive offer, but
what about this? What about Rivers? I want to take Rivers versus anyone under – sure, I'd take anyone under 6,500 versus him. Just can't take Cam. Anyone against Rivers under that price?
Yeah, I was my next prop. I was trying to figure out who I want to bet against Rivers.
Here, Pete,
what's a fair prop here with Rivers? I want to take Rivers versus some guys.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, here, let's table Rivers. Let's go back to the one that you were talking about. You want Wilson, and who was the other one you want?
I was talking about Matt Ryan. I was basically trying to set up Wilson and Matt Ryan versus Brady and someone similar range.
Sure. So you do that. You take those two. I will take Brady and Roethlisberger.
Okay, that's fine. I'll do that.
That's good.
Nick, you can jump on that if you want.
Yeah, I'm looking. I think I'll take Rodgers and somebody. I don't know. Well, I'll do Rodgers and Roethlisberger.
Okay. All right, we got some good ones there. Yeah, let's do Rivers. How about this? Rehab.
Pete, how about this?
Would you take Rivers over? Would you take Rivers over Roethlisberger?
Yeah, I'll do that straight up.
Oh, I'm on that one.
I'm on Ben.
Ben.
Sorry, Nick. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
You're good. All right, that's perfect. I think that's really
We're
close.
Good there.
Right now we have Roethlisberger one ahead of Rivers in terms of the ratings. We have him like 0.8 points higher. I think that's pretty reasonable. But yeah, I feel good about Rivers in this spot, so that's fine.
Carson Palmer is such a hard dude to figure out too.
Another Amari Proper. I want to just be all in on the Amari Carper for the props. That's like basically what I want to do every show.
How about this?
I already got him versus Crabtree, so I got some leverage. Let's leverage it up even more. Amari Cooper, I will take at a. Let's see, we have him listed as the 8th highest scoring receiver. I did this prop already on the 3 donkeys too. Like if 8's a push, I'll take it. 8 or better versus the field. I guess we top 8 or better.
I'll take the other side.
I'll take
It's a push.
Yeah, you lost that same bet last week, Pete.
I know.
So you're doubling down on it again. I'll take it.
I'll take the field
down every week. So
I'll take the field. I'm interested in target total for Keenan Allen. What do you guys think so he had 10 this last week. What do you think is like a realistic line that we could set for him for this upcoming week? I mean, I think 10 is maybe like on the lower range of that, maybe closer to like 11.
Who are you talking about?
Keenan Allen.
Yeah. I think it's probably pretty close, like 10.5, 11. I don't know. I mean, Miami does run the ball. I think they're going to run a bit with Ajayi.
I think Keenan Allen's over 10.5. I'd take over on that.
I'll take 10.5. Yeah, I think that's actually about right.
I think that's like what his prop should actually be.
Yeah, I'll take under, even though I think it's pretty close. I'll just do it to be different.
I'll take the under, but I think that's about right.
All right, let me throw out one here. I got an interesting one. How about Ezekiel Elliott versus Devonta Freeman straight up?
I want nothing to do with Ezekiel Elliott.
Which side do you want?
I want the Zeke side.
You want the Zeke side? Yeah, I do too.
I think
Freeman. Sure, I'll take it.
I think the Denver run defense is obviously a little more susceptible than their pass defense, and I think that's the direction Dallas goes this week.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm going to stay out of that one, but I agree on the Zeke enthusiasm.
Let me check some other running backs in that range.
His projected ownership, by the way, for Zeke is only 2 to 4 right now. So I think that's an interesting GPP play.
How about let me take 2 running backs under 6K versus Zeke or something like that. Screw it. I'll do Devonta Freeman. I said I would. Even though the projections they're light years apart. They're almost 4 points apart. I feel like that's.
Are they? That's probably going to come closer together, I would think.
Give me
Pete. I'll Cooper versus Julio 2 points.
No chance. I like Julio.
I'm
not trying to go against one of my stallions this week.
I'm seeing how far I could push you on Cooper.
So Nick, Nick, what number would you give in terms of if I could take 2 running backs and you're taking Zeke? What's the salary range?
That's what I want.
Let me take a look here. I got to flip over here. I'll do anything under 6K is fine. Marshawn Lynch is 6K, and they're pretty heavy favorites there. So anything under 6K.
I will do Ty and Gillislee. Ty Montgomery and Gillislee.
So let's say if you pick Ty, the other one has to be under 5K.
Yeah, that's fair.
Well, this just gets horrible. Yeah, I don't know. I'll do.
You go James White, Cohen, whoever. Jacquizz.
Yeah, I guess I'll do that. I'll do Montgomery and Jacquizz.
You were on Jonathan Stewart last week. Freedman, he's cheap.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm like I feel like that was fine last week. I don't know if I'm on him right now this week.
Yeah, anyone have like a fire defensive?
I was
prop?
just gonna say, does anybody have anything on defense? Because last week was so bananas on defense.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting this week for sure. Yeah. Pete, you got any defensive props, Pete?
Defensive props?
Yeah.
I want the Jaguars. The only problem is Mariota just doesn't turn it over that much.
Yeah.
I think the Chargers are going to be really good. Really good. I'll take the Chargers defense as a prop.
Like just against anybody?
No, but let me see here. Yeah. Boy, do I like – I'll take Chargers as the top 5 defense. If you give me top 5, I win. 6 is a push. Anything else, I lose.
Chargers?
Yeah,
They're going against the Dolphins, right?
They're going against Cutler.
Top 5 defense. 6 is a wash. 7 or less, you win.
I'll take that.
Okay. I think that's pretty sharp to take.
Let's stay away from me.
The field ones are almost always good. It's just hard when you're dealing. I mean, I don't know. The field ones are. We should do some analysis.
I think both of those teams are going to run like crazy. I think that's going to make it a little bit harder to get the takeaways and the the touchdowns that will really give them the opportunity to finish top 6.
I want Arizona's defense. Let's see who I could get. You want Arizona versus Denver, Pete?
I'll take Baltimore. How about that?
Yeah, I'll take you on that.
Cool.
I don't know if anyone. I mean, that's hard. You're picking the most expensive defense, and they're going against the Andrew Luckless Colts.
I'll take Baltimore though. I mean, here's my thing with Baltimore. They spent top 3 in free agency on defense, and they spent I think 3 or 4 their first 3 or 4 picks in the draft were on defense. They have probably the best safety duo in the league, and they're facing a rookie quarterback.
I think that's a good call.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also Arizona just allowed 35.
Yeah.
I'll take will you give me 2 if they're a little bit cheaper?
Yeah, so you want the
this is what we should be doing on defenses is one guy picks 2 and then the other guy picks 3. That's a pretty fair one. 2-1 is just too much.
Yeah.
2-1 is a lot. Yeah.
I'll take Chargers and Seattle versus any 3 starting under 3,500 or less.
Any 3 under 3,500.
Yeah, and I have Chargers and Seattle.
I'll take the Rams.
Yeah, I'm on that one too.
I'll take the Jaguars.
Oh fuck, the Jaguars.
Yeah.
Damn it.
Yeah.
Actually, I'll just take the Rams and the Jaguars. Let's do that.
No, you take 3.
I feel like I'm
hate going against my Jaguars.
I'll take the.
I don't mind Tampa Bay as a third.
I was gonna say the Buccaneers.
Yeah, I'll do those 3 as well.
Try to be nice to me, boys, and don't take the Jaguars. That's a sharp play, though.
Thanks.
Yeah. Okay, I will do the first 2, and then I will add in. I'm going to do Tampa Bay.
The Bucs,
Yeah.
Right.
Let's see here. I'm going to regret this probably. I want Cooper Kupp over 10 fantasy points, over 10 DraftKings points.
Yeah, I'll take the under on you.
I want the over.
You want the over?
I want the over. We're all going against Brian. Give me the over.
Sorry, Brian.
That's all right. Hey, I'll take it.
What about Cooper Kupp versus Corey Davis straight up?
Ooh.
They're both 4,100.
I like Cooper Kupp.
You want the Kupp side?
I want the Kupp side.
I want the Kupp side.
Yeah, Brian, who do you want?
I don't want Corey Davis against these Jacksonville quarterbacks.
Yeah.
I don't like. I was shorting Kupp. I wasn't trying to say that he was bad or anything.
Yeah. Let's see. I'm trying to look at a couple more here. I want no, because you'll be on the same side with me. Okay. T.Y. Hilton, what do we think is a fair line for him on I'll take the over, but I think the line has to be pretty low.
30 DK points.
In terms of fantasy points?
Yeah.
We have him at 12.1 right now.
Yeah. I think that's probably a little too high.
No, I'm not going under that.
Nah, I'm not going under either.
Okay. I mean, he's still going to get targets. Like, Tolzien's a disaster, but maybe they'll know who they're playing against this week.
Do you want under 12? 12.1?
I want the over, but I just want that line a little bit lower. I'll do whatever. I'll do 12.1 if you guys want the under on it.
No, I think everyone wants the over.
I'm trying to throw out one or two more here.
Yeah, a couple more. One down here.
Tight end, we hit on a couple guys. I'll take hold on here. I wanted to do Jimmy Graham for sure. I'll take Jimmy Graham and Gronk. You can take any other 3 tight ends. Is that fair? It's not bad. Highest score. I'll take Gronk and Jimmy Graham, and you can take any 3 tight ends. Or you can take 4 tight ends that are 4K or less. How about that? That's an interesting one. Any 3, or you can take 4 under 4K or less. Decent guys there.
I don't know. I kind of want the Gronk and Graham side.
Yeah, I'm not in love with some of these cheap. I mean, who are the decent guys you like?
I mean, you can take Olsen, or Reed, or Kelsey.
Nick. If you want to be on the Gronk and on Graham's side, I'll take 3 of the higher price guys. I'll do Ertz. I'll do Reed. And
no, you can't. Oh, I thought you said you had to be 3 under 5K.
No, he said any 3.
Oh, okay, I see.
Yeah, I'll do Ertz. I'll do Olsen, and let's see. I'll do
Kelsey.
Yeah, I'll do Reed.
Okay, I'm in on that too. Obviously,
yeah.
Brian,
I don't know, man. Tight end is tough this week, honestly.
Yeah, tight end really I think is tough this week.
I don't have like a really strong opinion on any of these guys, to be honest. I'm just going to have like very low ownership to the field, I think.
I'll do we right now have 8.3. Sorry, I'm reverting back to wide receivers.
How about Cameron Brate versus Antonio Gates straight up? They're the same price.
I want Brate.
I want Brate.
Yeah, me too.
I don't want the old man. So
no one's gonna
You guys have Gates projected higher, so I thought maybe somebody would take it.
I want JJ Nelson over on 8.3 points.
I like that actually. I like John Brown too. So
I'll take under 10 if you want it, Freedman.
No, I said 8.3 because that's what we're projecting, but no.
Under 9, buddy. That's the final offer. If you're bullish, here's your chance.
No, I'm passing.
Wow, discipline. Okay.
Company man, 8.3. That's what we have.
Discipline. Okay. I had a couple others that I wanted to – I mean, we've kind of hit on them. It's just a problem.
I'll go back to tight end. I'll do Kelsey under 12. I think we have him projected for 12, right?
Ooh.
Yeah, I'll do Kelsey under 12.
Yeah, I don't love it. I mean, the Eagles do I respect, but it's a good tournament play. I have one for you guys. I'll take Deshaun Jackson. I'm trying to figure out how I want to do this. So I think Deshaun Jackson has like massive upside, but I don't know how to like factor that in because he can also bust.
Yeah.
I'll take. What do we even have projected wise?
13 DK points. 4,900. 13 DK points.
There's a receiver 25 or something. 20.
Mm-hmm.
How about would you guys give me 3 packs of Coors Light versus my 1 pack of Coors Light? If so, this counts as 3 wins or 3 losses. Top 5 receiver on the week. Tops. I guess I threw that out there. Top 5.
Deshaun Jackson is the top 5, 3-1.
Yeah, I'll take the other side from
Yeah,
Pete.
I'll take the non-Djax side.
Sure, Pete.
How about this? How about Deshaun Jackson versus Marquise Lee straight up?
Done.
You want Lee?
I want Marquise Lee.
I want Djax.
This will be interesting. They're projected basically the same by you guys, so.
Give me Djax.
All right. Well,
the only thing that makes me nervous about that is it takes time for chemistry, but from what I've noticed, there's a big funnel towards the second receiver against the Chicago team over the last stretch of time. So we'll see.
Yeah, that's true. They do shut down the ones there for sure.
Cool. I think Freedman just walked out on us. I think he's signaling that it's time to go. So we are going to end it there. I think we've had quite a few minutes here on props. But Nick, thanks for joining us, man. Always a pleasure to have you on.
Anytime, guys. Good luck this week.
Yeah, good luck to everyone. Thanks for listening. As always, please send us a review on iTunes. Would really appreciate it. Again, good luck week 2. We'll talk to you guys next week.